Welcome back to Western Washington history. Water travel was very important in the early days of Western Washington. There are many stories to tell about people who were involved in this fascinating industry. Today we will put the magnifying glass on a business that supplied many boats for many trades. In the small town just a few miles west of Tacoma, the Skansie name is still well known. There is a street and a park named after the Skansie brothers. Who are these Skansie brothers? There were four: Peter, Andrew, Mitchell, and Joseph. They all came from Croatia. Peter Skansie was the first to come to America in 1889, the year Washington was made into a state, and 1 year after the founding of the little village of Gig Harbor. Andrew was a brick mason when he first arrived in Gig Harbor and worked for a brickyard in Willachet, at this point making from $2 to $2.50 a day. He then worked at the Gig Harbor mill before going to work at the mill in Old Town Tacoma. Please watch my video on Old Town Tacoma to learn more about that mill. As time went on, he moved into Gig Harbor. The town was probably like a second home to Andrew, as it was settled by Croatians and there was a large population of his former countrymen there. Somewhere between his arrival in 1900, he went to work as a fisherman. He worked for John and Mike Jerish, two brothers who were members of the first Croatian family to settle in Gig Harbor. With a home and income set up, he sent for his three other brothers. Mitchell came in 1899, and Andrew and Joseph arrived in 1900. They all three started fishing alongside their brother Peter. In 1905, Tomazina, the brother's sister, arrived in Gig Harbor. At the time, all fishing boats were either powered by hand with oars or by the wind with a sail. In 1902, the Skansie brothers put a 7-horsepower gasoline engine in a fishing boat, which was a relatively new idea. In 1886, inventor Gottlieb Daimler put an internal combustion engine that ran off of turpentine in a boat. That was in Germany. Maybe the brothers had heard of it before they came out this way, or maybe they heard of the two guys from Ballard who put a gas engine in a boat in 1900. Either way, it was a hit. In 1904, Mitchell married a local Croatian lady, Amanda Dorotic. They had two boys, William, or Bill as he was called, and Mitchell Jr. They also had two daughters, Clementine and Caroline. Joseph married Annie Dorotic, the sister of Mitchell's wife Amanda, in 1907. They had 5 children: Caroline, Catherine, Anne, Antoinette, and Joseph Jr. In 1907, the brothers, along with carpenter John Martinolich, built Nightingale, a 33-foot gasoline steamer. Martinolich went on to build his own shipbuilding business at Docktown on Maury Island. Mitchell went to Seattle to work for the Sunset Boat Company sometime between 1907 and 1910. He returned to Gig Harbor in 1910, where he opened a blacksmith shop that was active until at least 1915, when this ad was published. That same year, the original building and net shed were built. Also in 1910, they built the Navigator, a gasoline launch for purse seine fishing. Seine fishing was a Croatian style of fishing, a fishing net which hangs vertically in the water, with floats at the top and weights at the bottom, the ends being drawn together to encircle the fish. When full, the net is pulled on board or towed alongside the boat. It is a good way to fish for schools of fish near the surface of the water. While removing an engine from a boat, it fell on Mitchell's foot and smashed it in 1910. That didn't seem to slow him down, as 1910 was a very busy year for the Skansies. They went on to build the Aeroplane and the Fairplay, both fishing boats. Peter and Andrew continued to fish the Puget Sound for salmon. Both married and had children and retired as fishermen. Peter in 1930 and Andrew in 1940. Joseph probably continued to fish with his brothers until 1912. Now that we have the background established, let's get to the heart of this video. Mitchell and Joe opened the Skansie Shipbuilding Company in 1912. It was located at 3207 Harbor View Drive. The company was formed to not only repair boats but also to make them. In the end, they specialized in making good fishing boats and ferries. At first, all four brothers helped build boats, but after a while, Peter and Andrew returned to fishing. The shipbuilding shop was across the street from Mitchell Skansie's house and next door to Andrew's house, which still sits in the park that has their name at 3211 Harborview Drive. The business was also right next to the net shed the family used for its fishing business. They also had an office building and an engine repair shop on site. The brothers hired Sam Kazulin to be the manager. He was a master shipbuilder from Croatia. During this time, all of the brothers continued to fish in the spring and summer to keep money coming in. They were also perfecting the shipbuilding craft at this time. They changed the shape of the typical fishing boat to a teardrop design that saved on fuel as it cut through the water better. The Oceana, a 65-foot fishing boat designed for the Skansie fishing fleet, had a 50 horsepower gasoline engine. It was the first boat they built under the Skansie Shipbuilding Company name. Joseph Skansie was the first captain of the boat. Mitchell and Joseph operated the boat building business together, but at some point Joe left the business to work as a ferry boat captain. The Oceana was only the beginning. Next came the Mermaid, the President, Monarch, St. Joseph, Oceana, the Governor, Johnny E., Catherine, President II, the Louisiana, and the Commander, all by 1915. Many fishing boats were built at this time. I'm not sure if there is an actual record of each one, but I am working on compiling that information. In 1918, with World War I raging in Europe, there was an anti-German attitude going strong. Although not from Germany, the Skansies, as well as their fishermen neighbors, were from the area now entangled in war. To show they were Americans now and only Americans, they raised $12,850 for the war effort. In 1921, Skansie established the Stellicum Long Branch ferry route, and in 1924 added the Fox Island route. In 1925, the Skansies built the Shenandoah, a 64-foot purse seiner. This boat was given to the Harbor History Museum in 2000. Stop into the museum sometime and see what they have going on there. I said it before and I will say it again. A lot of these history museums are barely staying open. They operate a lot of times off of donations, and you should stop in and show them that what they do is important. This one is located at 4121 Harborview Drive. You can also see the progress they have been making on this historic boat at the Facebook page HHM Shenandoah Project. In 1926, the Skansie Shipbuilding Company built 12 boats and employed a crew of 26 workers. The Washington Navigation Company was created by Mitchell and Joseph Skansie in 1926. Mitchell was 93% owner as well as the president of the company. I.C. Rowland was the vice president. They had operating capital of $350,000. At this time, Pierce County was looking to get out of the ferry game. Mitchell now controlled all ferry routes in Pierce County, including those operating between Tacoma, Gig Harbor, and Vashon Island. Mitchell had the original Skansie Shipbuilding Company enlarged and began to build and repair ferry vessels. They took over 4 ferry routes and operated 7 car ferries, all built by the Skansies. They also expanded the net shed in the 1920s. The net sheds were added onto at least 4 times. One of these ferries that was built then was the Defiance, built in 1927 to operate between Gig Harbor and Point Defiance Park in Tacoma. The Defiance was a 360 horsepower, 180-foot long diesel ferry capable of speeds up to 16 knots per hour. The Defiance could hold 80 vehicles. The Defiance, along with a smaller boat called the Narrows, operated the Gig Harbor to Point Defiance run until 1940, when the Narrows Bridge was completed. As disaster struck the bridge, the old ferries would once again shuttle passengers until the next bridge was completed in 1950. In 1951, Washington State bought the remaining ferries when they took over the state's ferry system. Mitchell moved to Tacoma in 1929, where he lived until his death. I like to think of him at this time taking his own ferry to work in Gig Harbor and taking it back home each night. In 1930, the Avalon was launched. The Avalon was a fishing boat designed and built for Andrew Skansie. 2 generations of Skansies fished with the old boat up until 1990 when it was sold. That year, sister ship Veteran was launched, also for the Skansies fishing enterprise. The Veteran was restored and is now owned by the Gig Harbor Boat Shop since 2017. The Avalon, however, was dismantled in 2015 by the boat shop and each part cataloged. After sinking in Hood's Canal, the state of Washington declared it a derelict boat. The Skansie Shipbuilding Company had built over 100 fishing boats, ferries, yachts, and cannery tenders between 1912 and 1930, but times were changing. With the Great Depression came the need to focus on repair work and less new construction. In 1939, the captain of the ship called Skansie Shipbuilding Company, as well as head of the Washington Navigation Company, sadly passed away at his home at 824 North Tacoma Avenue. The newspaper said he had been ill for many months. Bill Skansie, Mitchell's older son, took over the company and resumed repair work. As World War II got underway, Bill leased the shipyard to Harbor Shipbuilding Corporation for 3 years. They worked with the military to not only repair military vessels, but also build crash boats and minesweepers for the Army Air Corps. Bill returned to run the business after the war was over. They expanded the net shed for the last time in 1947. Skansie Shipbuilding started up where it left off before the war, repairing boats, until 1949. Bill, along with his brother Mitchell and the foreman of the yard, John Kosulich, set out to build the first fishing boat to come from the Skansie plant since 1930. They called it Number 1. In 1955, the net sheds were renovated for the last time. Bill sold the yard in 1959. After a few years and a few owners, it ended up owned by Walt Williamson in 1967 and is now the Gig Harbor Marina. The old shipyard's main building is still being used by the marina as a boat repair facility. Since 2002, the city of Gig Harbor owns the net shed and Andrew Skansie's house and operates it as a park. Both buildings are on the Gig Harbor list of historic structures. 2 known boats built by the Skansie Yard that are still in existence are the Veteran, owned by the Gig Harbor Boat Shop, and the Shenandoah, owned by the Harbor History Museum. The Skansie Shipbuilding Company launched over 200 wooden boats between 1912 and 1959. Who knows how many tons of fish the brothers and their offspring have caught over the years, but one thing is certain, they left their mark on Gig Harbor as well as the Puget Sound. Skansie is a name not soon forgotten in Gig Harbor. The park, the street, the boats, and their many descendants have left a lasting mark on this quaint little harbor. Thank you for watching another video from Western Washington history. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learned a little. Have a great day, and remember, the things you do today will be history tomorrow.